Good evening and welcome to Realty Coffee Talk. My name is Tahir Qureshi. I'm your host. The topic today is how to prevent real estate fraud during the pandemic. It's an honor for me to introduce two of my guest panelists. First, Asiya Khan. She's a barrister and solicitor, and Adil Farooq, barrister and solicitor with Adil Law Firm and Asiya Law Firm. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'd like you to introduce yourself personally so people know which firm you represent, and then we will start the conversation about the issue that we have tonight.
Thank you. I think Asiya will start, and I will follow her.
Thank you so much. Yes, my honor. My name, as I just said, Asiya Khan, and my firm is Asiya Khan Law Chamber. And I have been practicing for the last, can't believe it, 8 years now in Canada. And with my background mainly has been practicing law and teaching law as well. So it always has been my passion that I educate the people, right? And for that purpose, even if I'm practicing law, I do try to find opportunities where I can actually educate the people as much as I can. And that's for that reason I have been conducting seminars also to have people just to know what a lawyer's duty, for example, in real estate transaction is, and how to protect the rights of the clients. So main areas of practice: family law, business law, and real estate.
Okay, Mr. Adil Farooq, please introduce yourself, then we'll go to the topic.
Yes, first of all, I would like to say thank you, Mr. Tahir, that you gave us an opportunity to join this wonderful show and give some brief knowledge to our listeners. My name is Adil Farooq, and I am practicing law since 1998. And I have my law firm with the name of Adil Law Professional Corporation. We're dealing with different kind of law, different fields of law, which includes the real estate, commercial, residential, and business transactions as well. Besides that, we are making wills for our client, and we are dealing with some state matters as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the introduction. As you know, the topic today is a real possibility or avoiding a real estate fraud, particularly this during a pandemic, because everybody is stressed. There is a lot of concern, and people have lost their job. There are almost 40,000 transactions in the process. Mm-hmm. We don't know how many people lost the job, or they're going to lose the ability to close the deal on time. There's litigation obligation of the agreement. So there are so many things comes in when it comes to fraud, and the more first prime definition is the fraud of shelter, where people secure the title of the property for false identification or many means of it. So the other one is a for profit, fraud for profit, and the third one is acquisition of property through fraud, but not for the intended use. Normally, let's say it's residential property, and people are using for grow house or other things. So something that comes to my mind is that property is linked to the title of the ownership. So I'm going to ask Adil, start with you, Adil. How do you think that title ownership fraudulently transferred, or what steps that you take to prevent that? How you guys manage that? And we ask Aisha after that. Can you tell us about the title?
The first of all, the main thing we all should understand that whoever has the title of the property, that person is considered as, apparently that person considered as an owner, for general purposes. But sometimes we saw this happening, that one person is buying a property on someone other's behalf. So it's not a fraud. I'm just giving a small definition that there are different types of ownership. sometimes as a registered owner, sometimes people are buying as a trustee for someone, and which is totally legitimate as long as there's a paper trail, there is a documentation which can prove that who is the beneficial owner. We are fine about that. But what I got from your introduction about the fraud, listen, the fraud, the title is also protected or backed by the government of Ontario. That any transaction which in the down the road, which is known that it was taken by fraud or by some material misrepresentations, that title can be reverted back to the person who actually owned the property. That's how it works. And not only that, if you remember, or if you must know this thing, that there is a product called title insurance.
Yes, yes.
So nowadays, if there's a mortgage, we are not allowed by the bank to close the deal without a title insurance.
But is it not a cause a problem, a loss for the insurance company who was guaranteeing that, which is in this case the government of Ontario?
No, it's not a government of Ontario. These are private title insurance companies like First Canadian Title Insurance, Stewart Title Insurance, Chicago Title Insurance. So there are quite few title insurance companies who give you insurance about any kind of fraud on the property. But that fraud comes. They protect the frauds which is after the closing happened. But I believe we are talking about the fraud at the time of transfer of the property. It is very unlikely. It is very unlikely. The one typical example I can give you of the fraud where people are using power of attorney.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, because I had in my career, I have one file when I prepared a power of attorney for one of my clients. Then he traveled outside of Canada, and he gave his power of attorney to his son. In his absence, the son sold the property, and then when the father came back, he sued his son that his son misused his power of attorney, because misuse of a power of attorney is amount to a fraud. So that's a typical example of the fraud. But again, that doesn't mean that this is the only way of doing the fraud. There are many other ways then the people can do the fraud while taking the title of the property.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I think it's a part of the fraud for shelter where the fraudster use illegitimate identification cards, information to get lawyers to approve it and transaction take place. But then discovery comes later on when this happened. So Aisha, do you have something on this? You want to say something? Aisha, can you say?
Well, yeah. The thing is that regarding fraud for identity, right? We have, and our law society and as well as the title insurers give us very stringent rules. And when it comes to the identifying our clients, right? So there are even a certain number of security features that we should be looking for in identity. For example, the driver's license. There are certain things which normally people don't know.
Yes.
And we do that. We magnify it and we see it. There are certain features that we can actually detect if it is it's forged, right? Then there are other features as well. We also look at the signatures, if they match with the documents signed, with the signatures on the this driver's license, for example, right? And that is, in this case, since we are talking about the pandemic as well. So in this situation, again, the Law Society, although has been flexible in having the documents signed over the, video conferences, Skype, etc. But at the same time, we are still have to be very careful about the identity. So we have to have the IDs before they sign the documents. Then when they are going to sign the documents, they have to flash it very close to the camera so that we can match it, and then they can again send the IDs. Yeah. So when it comes to identity theft, where there have been cases, and we have been actually informed by the title insurers as well. That just one example I'm going to give. You're not going to take much.
The question I have, Aisha, is that is there any way unauthorized person have access to the land registry to transfer the ownership or title?
When it is actually identity theft, it can happen. It has happened in a case where the mortgage was actually taken on the property. The person was sitting at home. He's called by the bank that you have to come. Your mortgage is approved. You have to come and sign the documents. He said, what documents? And he said that, you are refinancing the property. And it comes.
Aisha, we're going to be talking about the identity later on, but I think the issue, the other want to add something to it, because I'm saying is the system proof that you cannot transfer the property? It has a red flag that it tell you that you cannot transfer property until legitimate paperwork is processed by the lawyer. Is there any security with the system that allows to process the title transfer?
This is something, let me explain you how those things work, just for general public knowledge as well.
Yeah.
Being certified and in well-standing lawyers, only lawyers in Ontario have the access to that system which allow the transfer of the property.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is impossible for any XYZ to transfer a property without a lawyer's involvement.
Yeah,
that's the basic rule, right? As I told you in in my previous talk, that all the titles are guaranteed by the government of Ontario as well, and it is kind of impossible, and I see no reason why a person will use a fraudulent IDs to take a title under his or her name. They don't do that because there's no advantage of having the property under their name under the fraudulent documents. The only advantage somebody can get is by putting a mortgage on the property while using fraudulent IDs, because they take the mortgage on the property. And remember, the properties are mostly the properties those have very low mortgage or they are mortgage free. Those properties are at risk, more risk, because if the property already have 20%, only 20% equity, nobody can go there, nobody will touch that, because the fraudulent person will not get enough money out of that property. So I'm coming back to your question, that it's only the lawyer. Without the involvement of a lawyer, it is not possible to transfer the property. And we, being responsible lawyers, it is our responsibility to verify the identity of a person who came to our office as a transferor, that okay, this is my property, because transferor can use a fraudulent ID, not the transferee, because transferor is transferring the property, and he or she is the person who can have access to the funds through the lawyer if they use a property. But the person who's taking a title, if you think broadly, there's no sense make that why he will use fraudulent IDs.
That's true. So that's a good point. Now, I think you are relating something to do with the home equity scams, because when you have a mortgage, you get the refinancing. It's called a mortgage equity scam, where they manipulate the mortgage without letting know the lender, and sometimes they switch back and forth and try to draw money against the house and leave no equity in the house and then run away. Is that something that you're referring to?
This is another aspect. What I'm telling you, this is a different aspect where different individuals, they meet with each other and they inflate the value of the property. That's why few years ago, the bank and the title insurance, they instruct us a different clause. They introduce us a different clause, that this is our responsibility to see when we are acting for the purchaser, to see that when the last property was sold and what's the difference of the value. Let's say if somebody sold his property 6 months ago for $1 million, and after 6 months they again selling the new owner is selling the property for 1.5 million. How is possible? Like, it's not possible to have add the value of $500,000 in a property in 6 months, until or unless there are major kind of renovation on it, and the client has the proof and documentation. Okay, we bought this property and we renovated and we spent $300,000 on the renovation, and then it get a value of like $500,000. That makes sense. But without doing any renovation, without putting anything extra on the property, it is impossible to have increase of that drastic increase in that short of time. So this is a red flag. This is a red flag for us that something is going fishy, and we have the responsibility to notify the bank and to notify the title insurance that there is something wrong in this property. Then the bank and the title insurance will decide if they still want to proceed with that or not.
Yeah. Aisha, you want to add something to this?
Yes. Regarding this, that Aditya was talking about the price, right? We also, when there's a mortgage, we are also instructed by the bank, obviously, to look at that the purchase price that is given on the instructions by the bank is the same as on the agreement of purchase and sale, and that there have not been any deposits which are not called for in the original agreement, right? That has to be there. If there is any deposit or any amount that will go to the the seller. For example, sometimes it happens that, there's going to be a repair to the property before the closing. And if the repair is not done, for example, $2,000 will be actually credited to the purchaser. So it has to be in the agreement of purchase and sale. So this is one of the aspects. And just quickly, since you asked me, we know that there are major 3 ways to commit a fraud, right? Firstly is that for saying that the property is going to be owner occupied, although you want to rent it out. And we know that when the property is going to be rented out, the down payment has to be at least 20% or more, right? So when you are saying...
Not necessarily.
No, oh, okay. Then in most of the cases, the down payment is more in a rented property. So when you say it's owner occupied, what is just being done is an affidavit is being taken that it is going to be an owner occupied. That's about it, right? Second way of doing is that shady mortgage broker. Right? We know there are some mortgage brokers who are actually forging documents, right? And just to show that the person has enough funds or is stable, right? In buying the property. And for that purpose, obviously, fraudulent documents are made. Then we have the shuffling of debts. This is the third type. When the person has a lot of debts and he cannot qualify for the mortgage, right? And he asks one of his family members or friends, if you give me a loan, pay off this debt so that I can qualify. In the long term, it doesn't work like that. We all know that, but these are some of the ways to commit.
Yeah, see the mortgage fraud, which is coming up in next thing that I wanted to add that.
Yeah.
The mortgage fraud is the responsibility of the lender and the mortgage broker who is trying to pre-qualify or qualify the document they are required under financial, if they are licensed brokers, Financial Service Commission of Ontario or FESRA, they have a very specific instructions, know your client. No
Same here.
suitability, because I am a now principal mortgage broker. So I went through the process because I've been a broker for 10 years, but I didn't do any transaction. Now I register brokerage. So I can tell you, know your client is very important element. Then looking at the option of the products available, then the suitability of the product for your client based on the information he provided to you. Number 4 is that what you took your due diligence to verify the information presented to you in order for them to process the application, go through the approval process. So I think at the time that you have is that if the bank has been satisfied with the document, the due diligence and all those things, unless that something is very, very wrong when they are signing the paper, IDs are not matching and somebody else photo is added to the picture and you can suspect that, that's about it at that time because the funding has already been arranged to the bank. So now the other thing is sometimes the tenants, they live in a property, you don't use MLS system. They go to Kijiji, other places, pretending that the property is in the market for sale, and people are trying to maneuver things and claiming that they are the owner and they're trying to sell something. That is also, did you come across any landlord who has or tenant might have taken advantage of that in your practice, Adil?
Sir, before I go there, if you allow me, I can just have a comment on the mortgage stuff, if you allow me.
Sure, please.
Okay, I would say, being a lawyer, we have no way to go behind the deal.
Yeah.
Right? We are required to follow whatever instructions bank gave us to process the mortgage.
Yeah.
Your mortgage broker, is your responsibility to process the whatever documents you need, the lender required to process the loan.
Yeah.
I'm not a 007 to who will start investigating whether his bank statement was genuine or whether his other financial things. Believe me or not, we are not required to ask our client, okay, how you arrange your down payment. We don't need to. This is not our job. We ask them, okay, in order to close this deal, let's say we need $60,000, so give us a $6,000 draft. They just bring it. We never ask them, is this your father gave you, is your brother gave you, is your savings, because this is not my job. This is your job to satisfy the lender. So it was just a side note. I thought I'd just share my thought about that. And coming to your other point about the tenant, nowadays landlord and tenant things are in a very, very bad shape.
Yeah.
I have many calls from my clients who are landlord, and I receive few calls from my clients who are tenants. The tenant do not want to pay, but landlord want to get money from them. They don't want to defer their mortgage just because the tenant don't want to pay. And you may know that there are special arrangements, special announcements by the landlord and tenant board that as of now, they will not make any rates for eviction. They will not execute any eviction notices. Yes, they can process the claim if the courts are open, but they will not evict anyone just because of that they are not paying the rent. But remember, it doesn't mean that they will not pay the rent. It means, okay, if they are not paying for 3 months, they have to pay this rent in future, whatever way they want to, maybe in installments or in lump sum. It's a different story.
Yeah.
But they are not allowed to take advantage of this current situation.
Yes, I'm going to go back to the one of the fraud is the overpayment scheme that I have learned that sometime buyer and seller, they do private transactions. They negotiate agreement of purchase and sale, and they built in their sort of a down payment, and somehow when the transaction is completed and their lawyers give the money and the seller give that money to the buyer who borrowed the money from somebody to buy the deal. So this is a fraud under the Mortgage Act, and it's not permitted. And how often do you see any complaint or anyone talking about this type of arrangement? Because bank will do appraisal. I tell you, if it's a loan to value ratio, if it's a high risk mortgage, bank will not bank money is guaranteed by the CMHC, so they don't worry about it. But when the payment is 20% up, there is no guarantee from the government. Therefore, they take the liability, and they know they are very risky. They want to do appraisal. So appraisal, they come out there, they check the value of the property, and then they say, okay, this is the value that it should be, the mortgage should be granted. So sometime if you can see a contract, and sometime if it's a B lender or private financing, it could be manipulated. Did you ever have any experience, Aisha, and you both have a few minutes to each of you?
Not me as such. Maybe Adil Sab can throw some light on that.
I will say, if there is such kind of situation, the buyer and seller nowadays, they are very smart.
Yes.
Okay. I will start from this.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I would say not most of the time, they don't disclose those things to us.
Yes.
If they are doing something under the table on their own between themselves, they never disclose to us. But I had a situation where I was not a lawyer for the buyer, and I was not a lawyer even for the purchaser. Okay, I was contacted by one of them, and they want me to help them to get out of this situation. Okay, because I'm telling you that's to see their height of their smartness. They know that if they go back to their lawyers who are representing them, they will kick them out of their office, and they will not close their deal. Right? But again, because this was going towards a fraudulent activity, so I have to straightforward refuse them that I'm sorry, I cannot help you to give you any advice. I can just warn you, don't do these kind of activities, because these are considered as fraudulent activities.
Yes.
That's the only thing I can do this, because if we become a part of the fraud, then our professional ethics will not allow us, and our professional abilities and our license is on stake. So people don't come to us for these kind of stuff.
My personal experience is that in the industry, when people are like renovation or contractors and all that stuff, they have no licenses.
Right, you're right.
They don't care about ethics and morals, the code of professional conduct that we follow. So for them is not a morality. I know I heard many times say, oh, so and so can do the mortgage, do the paperwork. They don't know they can go to jail for that. And this is a fraud. And especially when you have a self-employed. When they are self-employed, they don't declare income, they don't pay taxes, and they're living in a mansions and buy a multi-million-dollar house. And I don't know why CRA don't even see them. They're living in such expensive houses. And I work like 18, 20 hours a day to support the family. But they're living in a very big mansions. So, Aisha, do you have an experience? You want to add something to it? How this can be prevented? And I'm sure you have your own checklist. You created a checklist for your file, certain things that you verify and all that stuff. And this is probably one of them in there. So I know both of you very well, very professional. So now I'm going to come to you is a topic of misrepresentation, because misrepresentation is where things can happen.
Challenging. Yes.
So how the purpose is to identify the misrepresentation or fraudulent activity, and how our legal community is trying to prevent that and is not happening. That's the purpose. So we have to identify misrepresentation, and then we also say how you guys are preventing it. So,
Asia, you want to start?
You go ahead. No, you go ahead first.
Mr. Qureshi, before I say something, first of all, we should understand what is misrepresentation.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Misrepresentation is, I would say, if you are manipulating the facts in your favor, just to get some specific results.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are misrepresenting. Okay, means I will just give you very, very common example. and this example came in front of us as a real estate lawyers. It comes to us on many occasions. Means you may aware about the HST rebate.
Yes, yes,
right? It's a very sensitive topic.
yes.
Okay, I remember I did 1 hour talk at one presentation only on this topic, and people was amazed. Okay, that's how it works, because many realtors don't know how this thing works.
Exactly.
Right, and when they take their client to the builder's office, they don't tell them, guys, if you are buying a property for $500,000, and if you will not live in this house as your primary place of residence, get ready to pay between $24,000 to $30,000 on top of the purchase price.
I think they put a ceiling of 24,000. I think now.
No, there are two portions, sir. There are two portions.
Yes.
One is provincial. No, one is provincial. One is federal.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is between $24,000 to $30,000. Varies.
Okay.
And we touched the $24,000 when the purchase price is $430,000.
Yes.
Okay, it's a side note. I'm just telling the misrepresentation aspect of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
At the time people sign the agreement, nobody tells them.
That's right.
Right, and they have in their mind, okay, I will take this property and I will sell it right after I buy it, or I will put a rent. And when they came to us, when we asked, oh, what's the purpose of this property? Oh, I am going to sell it, or I'm going to rent it on the property. I say, okay, brothers, then get ready for $24,000 more.
Yeah.
And the moment I tell them, after understanding, they said, oh, no, it's not. I'm sorry, I didn't remember that. I was buying this for my family friend. I was buying for my family or for my child or for myself.
Because they have to sign that declaration there, you know?
Yes, exactly. But when we explain them, okay, this is just make up your mind, what is your purpose? And then few people say, okay, it's investment, they pay $24,000 more and they get this rebate back from the CRA later on. But sometimes people, again, I repeat myself, nowadays buyers are very smart. Yeah. Before they come to my office, they know this thing. And the moment I ask them, oh, no, this is my family residence, this is my primary, I say, okay, you are signing a declaration, and signing a wrong declaration is an offense.
Yes, because it's a declaration.
It is an offense. People can go to jail for signing wrong declaration. And sometimes when they buy the property and after some time they rent it or sell it, they got a notice from CRA, they come back to me, oh, Mr. Farouk, we get this notice. I say, okay, yeah, because you sell the property or you rent it out. No, I say, okay, this is the document which you signed in my office after knowing all those things. Yeah. Unfortunately, our clients have very short-term good memory.
This particular subject, I have spoken many times in Realty Coffee Talk when I used to go to the community center, that you have to make a choice when you're buying the property. Is going to be matrimonial home or is going to be investment property. True. If it's investment property, you paid HST, rent it for 1 year, get your input tax credit. You get your money back from CRA.
Exactly.
And then this property will be a inventory, and when you sell it, you share the profit as a capital gain, as a sale with the government. So it was very interesting few years back. I think we very rarely hear this thing now, but
it is happening.
Years back, it was every day I get called, every day. I said, no. If you bought it for personal use, you have to live in there. If you don't, then second property. The problem was when people bought the second property, the equity they built in a prime home was so high, they couldn't compromise that. True. To switch it to move into a new house and rent that property. So there were risk calculation in terms of value and contribution and how CRA going to treat that property. Because they were planning to switch back and forth. So I think I agree with you because this is a part of that dishonest declaration, and of course it's a fraud when you sign the declaration to CRA and you're telling to the builder it's a personal use, and now you're
renting it out. You are renting it out, or you are selling away after a couple of days.
That because you're taking away the ability of CRA to give it to the deserving people, basically.
True. Yes.
So and then you misstatement. So Aisha, you want to say anything else here?
Yeah, just one thing, as Mr. Adil Farooq mentioned, that people actually forget that if they are if it is going to be an investment property, truly speaking, it was going to be, right? They are just signing the declaration that upfront they don't have to give the HST rebate, right? They want to get the rebate. They don't understand that later they will get in the form of a rental rebate. They don't understand that, but still they want to go ahead doing that, right? Another thing is when we're talking about the real estate agents, they don't also make them understand that if it's a condominium, so there are 2 steps of closing, right? So the builders clearly say in the agreement that if it can be assigned, if it can be assigned, and if the consent of the builder will be required. So I have seen people doing that, and I think it is the responsibility of the real estate agents also to clarify this to their clients, because the agreements are so huge that a person cannot understand whatever is written in it unless they get it reviewed by the lawyer, right?
I advise to the people, buyer and even realtor, to get the lawyer involved very early on. You're going to pay for the services of a lawyer to close your deal. When you are negotiating an agreement of purchase and sale, you talk to the lawyer. If you have issues dealing with a mortgage, talk to your lawyer. If there is an issue with the inspection, talk to a lawyer. If there is an appraisal issue, pay a little money and make sure you are getting a competent advice from your team. Lawyer is very, very important team player in buying and selling real estate.
Yeah, so, I just wanted to correct one thing. So I just wanted to finish that off. So I have seen people what they have been doing, because the agent did not explain it to them. They did not read the agreement. They did not get it reviewed. I have seen them. What's happening is that they put it on Kijiji. Can you imagine? For rental purposes. For rental purpose. Now this is something. And the agreement says it's very clearly, you have to take the consent of the, builder. And before final closing, you cannot do it. So people end up in such situations, and then we have to tell them, and they quickly get it off the Kijiji. But then they are so overwhelmed by that time. They're so frustrated. And then they say, okay, why didn't we ask the lawyer?
Yeah. If you allow me, I want to add another typical example of misrepresentation.
Yeah.
Which I saw. It's not very common, but it's happened with me at least a couple of times. And which is when the person will buy a property and they go to the mortgage, and for some reasons the mortgage broker told them, okay, you will get approved only if you are single. And if they are married, they sign the wrong declaration that I am not a spouse.
Yeah.
Just to get that deal through. That is very alarming sometimes, because these people don't know how that specific misrepresentation can bite them back. I cannot give you any I don't want to give a bad example, but this is happening around us.
It's a fraud by declaration to the bank.
Yes.
And if somebody is getting involved to create a mortgage loan for a family, there is no separation agreement, legal agreement registered somewhere, and they're living apart, and or divorced, and you are doing a fraud actually. If people don't see that way, but it's a fraud.
It is a fraud.
You're misrepresenting to the lender all the party involved, that you are misrepresenting. And this is why I always educate people, and when they talk to me and I said this is a fraud, you can't do that, and then obviously somebody else willing to do something and they go ahead and do it, and they get in trouble. But this is changing his attitude, the behavior, and falsehood impression that a professional with a license they're going to put at jeopardy by compromising and breaching the law to help someone for a short, small money is no. They should not do that, and they should should, and obviously the important thing to prevent those fraud is a responsibility of the profession to report them. That's the other part of it. Regardless of a client, if somebody attempt to do it or forced to do it, then you can alert authority. But that's what is our moral, ethic, professional duty, to prevent some unlawful thing happening if somebody is trying to do that. And the other important thing is when we talk about the misrepresentation and mortgage, people cannot afford the house. They are living hand to mouth. They don't have a contingency funds. They are being forced to buy the house or mortgage being arranged. They can handle it for a month or two. After closing, something goes wrong. Who is responsible for that? In my feeling is that if you don't know your client and you don't find the suitability of your client, you are putting that family into jeopardy and lifetime headache for them to handle the debt and defaults and all that stuff. So they are part and parcel with prevention that we will try to do and encourage people not to encourage or do things which is unethical, basically, and cause problem. So now the next issue is part of the misrepresentation is also I think in the mortgage, people declare I have a more value mortgage, especially they are a private small business. And they declare more money, but they really don't have money, or somebody fabricated the income documents. And later on, if there is a event like a pandemic right now, lots of people, like we are in real estate, I'm a self-employed. I have, I'm trying to do things to make some money for different ways. And so what would you do? And I have to declare I have no income right now, for example, or I am generating less income than what I had in the past. And the good thing is about tax system, they look at your T4 or T4A for the last year, not this year, right? But as a part of knowing your client and being due diligence, you say, what are you doing? Are you being laid off? You have no income? You have to know about your client. That's a new thing I learned in the mortgage, a few things that I recently freshed.
Yeah, but so we are not worried about that. As I told you, we don't look behind the mortgage approval.
Okay.
That's your job. You have to do that.
That's your job. But so, if you remember in the start, you mentioned a topic of corporate business sales and purchases.
Yeah.
So if we are touching that, just let me know, because this is very important topic, because I think we are almost done with our time.
Yeah, we're going to be out of time. So I give you both 1 minute to give you a brief, 1 minute because we have to wrap up and give final. And also you can leave your phone number and your name, law office, so in case anybody needs their help, and they can call you. So Asiya Khan?
Yeah.
Yes, Asiya, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just that since generally speaking, so what we're talking about as lawyers, because I'm a lawyer, I would speak from that perspective, that in this situation, with very uncertain situation, we have to be very careful when we are closing the transactions, may it be purchase, or refinance, even sales. So as I said, just to wrap up, we have to be very careful about the IDs. We have to check that if there is a power of attorney, since the power of attorney is being given by an elderly person who obviously cannot come to the office, then we have to make sure that the power of attorney has not been revoked. It is still operative. And again, then if it's what we have to check is that if the person who is coming to sign the documents, does he or she understand English? If I make them, even in my case, if I know Urdu, I can do that, right? But other than that, nothing more than that can be done. So if the person really understands what he or she is signing upon, and if someone brings in a person who is going to translate or interpret, then I have to make sure that that person is doing the right thing, right? So I have to, certain things
I'd
that...
like you to give your name, please, and name and number so they can reach you.
Yes, my name is Asya Khan. My firm name is Asya Khan Law Chamber, and my phone number is 416-886-0701.
Thank
You
you,
need my
Asya.
email address also?
Adil, please.
Okay. On top of whatever Asya said, I will add that whenever you are looking for a lawyer, please make sure that you hire a competent lawyer who can complete your transaction according to the law. But once you retain a lawyer, please listen to him carefully. I saw a problem with many clients. They retain a lawyer and then they don't trust their lawyers. If you will not trust your professionals you hired, you will end up not having a good service, because you have to have a full faith of all of the professional people you are dealing with, especially in the real estate transaction, starting from the realtor, mortgage broker, and then the lawyer. So have a full faith on your professional team of your professional to have your transaction for a complete and smooth completion of your transaction. And I can be reached I can be reached at 905-502-7474, and my email address is adil, ADIL, at adillaw, ADILLAW.ca.
Well, thank you very much, Asya Khan and Adil Farooq. I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you for having me.
I will, in closing remarks, I would say that, first of all, on behalf of Awaz Entertainment and Realty Coffee Talk, we thank you all health professionals who are fighting war against coronavirus. They put their life online to protect all of us. We are thankful and grateful for your service. Today's topic is about how to avoid real estate fraud in during pandemic. So we have learned today during our discussion that our law system is very strong. Our professionals are very ethical. There is a system in place. They verify identities, do all the due diligence necessary. They have checklists for the file to verify, to make sure they're dealing with the right person. And our title insurance protect the buyer when they spend money to the ownership of the house. Yes, if there is a fraud did take place because of theft identity, then insurance company probably are on the hook for the money, but the buyer is not. That's my understanding is. But the idea is to be professional, try to help and cooperate. I advise all buyers and sellers to form your team. Talk to your lawyer, talk to your realtor, talk to your home inspector, talk to your appraisal, talk to your bank, to make sure they all work in peace and harmony together, to make sure there is a trouble-free transaction, peace of mind, and happy enjoying in your new home. So thank you very much for watching. God bless you all. Be safe. God bless Canada. Thank you very much.
Thank you.